I never imagined that a man could feel like a stranger inside his own body. Not suddenly, not with a loud warning, not with some dramatic moment where everything changes at once, but slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. After 50, many men begin to notice small things they do not talk about. A hesitation, a weaker response, a night where the body does not react with the same confidence it once had, a morning where desire feels distant, a private moment where masturbation, something that used to feel simple, natural, and uncomplicated, suddenly comes with questions. Why did it feel different this time? Why did I need more stimulation? Why did I feel guilty afterward? Why does my body not respond the way it used to? Why am I scared to talk about this? And maybe the most painful question of all, is something wrong with me? For many men, this is not just about sex. It is not just about masturbation. It is not just about erections. It is about identity. Because somewhere along the way, many men were taught that their masculinity had to be automatic, strong, reliable, silent, always ready, always capable, always in control, no fear, no doubt, no weakness, no conversation. So when the body starts changing, the man does not always see it as a signal. He sees it as a personal failure. He does not say, maybe my body is asking for attention. He says, maybe I am not the man I used to be. And that sentence can destroy a man quietly. Because what happens after 50 is often not a collapse. It is a conversation the body has been trying to start for years. But many men do not know how to listen. They only know how to hide. They hide from their partner. They hide from the doctor. They hide from their friends. They hide from themselves. And behind that silence, a story begins to grow. Maybe I am getting old. Maybe I damaged myself. Maybe masturbation ruined me. Maybe my desire is disappearing. Maybe my partner will notice. Maybe I am no longer enough. Maybe this is the beginning of the end. And once a man begins to believe that story, his body becomes more than a body. It becomes a courtroom. Every weak erection becomes evidence. Every private habit becomes proof. Every moment of doubt becomes another sentence against him. But what if the body is not accusing him? What if the body is asking to be understood? Because masturbation is not the enemy. Aging is not the enemy. Desire is not the enemy. The real enemy is shame. The real enemy is silence. The real enemy is misunderstanding what is happening and then turning that confusion into self-hatred. And that is where this conversation begins. Not with judgment, not with fear, not with some loud promise that everything can be fixed overnight, but with honesty. Because after 50, sexual health becomes connected to everything: blood flow, sleep, hormones, stress, medication, alcohol, weight, heart health, emotional pressure, relationship tension, porn habits, anxiety, self-esteem, years of hidden shame, years of pretending everything is fine, years of carrying the pressure to perform without ever admitting how heavy that pressure has become. A man may think he is dealing with a sexual problem, but sometimes he is dealing with a whole life problem that finally showed up in the most private part of his body. And that is why this subject is so important. Because when a man struggles sexually after 50, he often does not ask the right question. He asks, why am I failing? But the better question may be, what has my body been trying to tell me? Because erections depend heavily on circulation, and circulation depends on cardiovascular health. The same blood vessels that support the heart, brain, legs, hands, and organs are connected to sexual response. So when blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, inflammation, smoking, alcohol, lack of movement, poor sleep, or years of stress begin affecting the body, sexual function can be one of the first places a man notices the warning. That does not mean panic. It means pay attention. It means your body may be giving you information before something bigger becomes impossible to ignore. But many men do not treat it as information. They treat it as humiliation. And humiliation makes a man hide. When he hides, he delays help. When he delays help, anxiety grows. When anxiety grows, performance becomes harder. When performance becomes harder, confidence drops. And when confidence drops, masturbation can begin to change meaning. It may stop being just pleasure. It may become escape, escape from rejection, escape from the fear of disappointing a partner, escape from the pressure of intimacy, escape from loneliness, escape from stress, escape from the mirror, escape from the question no man wants to ask out loud, am I still enough? And this is where many men get trapped, because masturbation itself is not always the problem. For some men, it is healthy, relaxed, and without conflict. But for others, especially after 50, it becomes something more complicated. It becomes a test, a private performance exam, a way to check if the body still works, a way to prove that desire still exists, a way to calm anxiety for a few minutes, a way to avoid a conversation that feels too painful, a way to escape the fear of real intimacy. And the more a man uses it to test himself, the more pressure he creates. The body does not respond well to pressure. Arousal needs safety. It needs relaxation. It needs presence. But anxiety turns the body into a machine being inspected. And once a man begins watching himself from the outside, judging every sensation, measuring every response, waiting to see if he will fail, even a private moment can become stressful. He is no longer feeling. He is evaluating. He is no longer connected. He is checking. He is no longer relaxed. He is afraid. And fear changes everything. This is why some men begin to avoid intimacy with a partner, but continue relying on solo habits. Not because they do not love their partner, not because they do not want connection, but because solo habits feel safer. There is no one to disappoint, no one to explain yourself to, no one to see the hesitation, no one to ask, what's wrong? But the safety is temporary, because afterward, many men feel worse. They feel empty, guilty, disconnected, weak, ashamed, and then they withdraw even more. This becomes the cycle. Dysfunction creates shame. Shame creates isolation. Isolation lowers self-esteem. Low self-esteem increases anxiety. Anxiety makes dysfunction more likely. And then the man thinks the problem is only physical, when in reality, his body and emotions are feeding each other in silence. That is why a man cannot rebuild confidence by simply pretending nothing happened. And he cannot rebuild confidence by attacking himself. He needs clarity. He needs understanding. He needs a private, mature, honest way to look at what is really happening. If this part feels uncomfortably familiar, if you have been dealing with weaker erections, shame after private moments, low confidence, or the fear that your body is changing for good, I left a practical guide in the first link below. It shows you the first steps to understand what may be affecting your circulation, desire, confidence, and sexual response after 50 without panic, without judgment, and without pretending the problem does not exist. The access is still available right now, but I don't know how long it will remain online. So if this message feels personal to you, click the first link in the description and take a look before you close this video. Because clarity matters. A man cannot rebuild confidence while he is still calling himself broken. He needs to know what he is dealing with. He needs to stop turning every symptom into a sentence against himself. And he needs to understand that sexual health after 50 is not separate from the rest of the body. It is not a secret room disconnected from your heart, your mind, your sleep, your stress, your food, your movement, and your emotions. Everything speaks through the body. The question is whether you are listening. A weaker erection may be connected to poor circulation. A lower desire may be connected to poor sleep. A sudden change may be connected to medication. A lack of confidence may be connected to anxiety. A compulsive habit may be connected to loneliness. A feeling of shame may be connected to beliefs you learned decades ago. A fear of intimacy may be connected to a painful experience you never processed. And sometimes all of these things are happening together. That is why the answer is rarely as simple as just stop masturbating, or just take something, or just be confident. Real confidence is not forced. Real confidence is rebuilt, and it begins when a man stops asking, "What is wrong with me?" and begins asking, "What patterns am I missing?" That question changes everything, because now he starts paying attention. He begins to notice whether the issue happens only when he is with a partner or also when he is alone. He begins to notice whether morning erections have changed. He begins to notice whether his desire drops after poor sleep. He begins to notice whether alcohol affects him more than it used to. He begins to notice whether stress follows him into the bedroom. He begins to notice whether he is using pornography, not because he feels desire, but because he feels numb. He begins to notice whether masturbation has become rushed, aggressive, automatic, or disconnected from real pleasure. He begins to notice whether he is trying to prove he still works instead of actually listening to his body. And that last part is important. Many men after 50 are not masturbating from relaxation. They are masturbating from fear. They are testing the machine. They are asking, "Can I still do it?" And when the answer is not what they hoped for, the shame gets heavier. But your body is not a machine. Your body is alive. It responds to rest. It responds to stress. It responds to safety. It responds to blood flow. It responds to emotions. It responds to how you treat it every day. And it also responds to how you speak to yourself. A man who spends years calling himself weak, broken, old, useless, or finished is not just thinking negative thoughts. He is creating an internal environment of threat, and a body that feels threatened does not easily relax into desire. It protects, it tenses, it shuts down. This is why sexual health after 50 must be approached with maturity, not panic, not shame, not denial. Maturity. A mature man does not ignore the signal. He investigates it. He does not blame his body. He leads it. He does not hide forever. He chooses clarity. And leadership after 50 may look different than it did at 25. At 25, maybe everything felt automatic. At 55, 60, or 70, The body may ask for more care, more rest, more movement, more honesty, more patience, more attention to circulation, more respect for stress, more serious conversations, more responsibility. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. Because a man who expects his body to perform for decades without care is not being strong, he is being disconnected. Strength after 50 is not pretending nothing changed. Strength is learning how to respond to change without losing yourself. And yes, this may mean speaking with a qualified professional. It may mean checking blood pressure. It may mean checking cholesterol. It may mean checking blood sugar. It may mean asking about testosterone. It may mean talking about medication side effects. It may mean reducing alcohol. It may mean quitting smoking. It may mean walking daily. It may mean losing weight slowly. It may mean improving sleep. It may mean talking to a therapist. It may mean having a difficult but honest conversation with your partner. It may mean saying, I have been scared and I need patience, not pressure. That sentence alone could change a relationship because many partners do not understand the silence. They only feel the distance. They may think the man no longer wants them. They may think he is emotionally absent. They may think he is hiding something. But often he is hiding shame. And shame makes love difficult. Not because love is gone, but because the man is too afraid to be seen. So he disappears into himself. And sometimes masturbation becomes part of that disappearance, not as an evil habit, not as something to demonize, but as a place where he can avoid being vulnerable. The problem is that avoidance does not heal fear. It protects the wound while keeping it open. That is why a man needs to ask himself honestly, am I choosing this or am I running to it? Do I feel connected to my body or am I just trying to prove something? Do I feel calm afterward or ashamed? Am I using this as pleasure or as anesthesia? Am I avoiding intimacy because this feels safer? Am I training my body only for one kind of stimulation and then wondering why real intimacy feels different? These questions are not accusations. They are doors, and most men never open them because they are afraid of what they might find. But what they often find is not failure. They find exhaustion. They find fear. They find loneliness. They find pressure. They find old guilt. They find years of carrying expectations without support. They find a man who has been silently asking for help without knowing how to say it. And that discovery can hurt, but it can also free you. Because once you understand the real problem, you stop fighting shadows. You stop thinking one private habit explains everything. You stop reducing your masculinity to one physical response. You stop punishing yourself for being human. You stop believing that aging means disappearing. There is a difference between change and collapse. Your body may be changing, but that does not mean it is finished. Your desire may be different, but that does not mean it is gone. Your confidence may be wounded, but wounded does not mean dead. And sometimes the wound begins to heal the moment you stop hiding it from yourself. Because shame grows in silence, but clarity weakens shame. When a man understands what may be affecting his body, he becomes less afraid. When he becomes less afraid, he becomes more present. When he becomes more present, his body feels safer. And when the body feels safer, confidence has a chance to return. Not always instantly, not always dramatically. Sometimes confidence returns like sunrise, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day the room is brighter. A man begins walking again, not to impress anyone, but because blood flow matters. He begins sleeping better, not because someone told him to be disciplined, but because he finally understands that sleep affects hormones, mood, desire, and nervous system recovery. He begins eating differently, not from punishment, but from respect. He begins reducing alcohol, not because he is weak, but because he wants his body to respond with more life. He checks his health markers. He speaks to a doctor. He stops treating every sexual challenge like a secret disaster. He stops turning masturbation into a hidden courtroom. He stops measuring his worth through one part of his body. And slowly, he begins to feel like he belongs to himself again. That is what many men are actually looking for. Not just stronger erections, not just more desire, not just better performance, but the feeling of being whole again, the feeling that their body is not betraying them, the feeling that they are not broken, the feeling that they can still be respected, desired, confident, and alive after 50. Because the fear is not only, will my body respond? The deeper fear is, who am I if it doesn't? And that is the wound we need to talk about. A man is more than a performance, more than an erection, more than a private habit, more than a difficult night, more than a moment of shame, more than the version of himself he remembers from 25. After 50, the goal is not to become the man you were decades ago. The goal is to become the man who finally understands himself, the man who knows his body, the man who respects his limits without surrendering to them, the man who takes care of his circulation, sleep, stress, hormones, and emotional health because he understands they are all connected, the man who can speak honestly, the man who can ask for help, the man who does not confuse silence with strength, because silence can steal years. It can make a man believe he is the only one. It can make him believe every other man is stronger, healthier, more confident, and more in control. But that is not true. Many men are carrying the same fear. They just learned how to hide it well. They hide it behind jokes, behind distance, behind work, behind anger, behind avoidance, behind private habits, behind the phrase, "I'm fine." But being fine is not the same as being free. And if dysfunction, shame, or low self-esteem have been affecting the way you see yourself as a man, remember this before you leave. Silence does not fix sexual health. It only makes the fear heavier. The method is also available in the pinned comment. It was placed there so you can take the next step privately, without embarrassment, without exposing yourself, and without waiting for things to get worse. Click the pinned comment while it is still available. Because sometimes the most important decision is not to pretend everything is fine. Sometimes the most important decision is to finally understand what your body has been trying to tell you. And I want to be clear. Hope is not fantasy. Hope is not pretending every man can solve every problem with motivation alone. Some men need medical treatment. Some need medication adjustments. Some need cardiovascular evaluation. Some need hormone testing. Some need therapy. Some need relationship repair. Some need lifestyle change. Some need all of it together. But hope is real when it is built on knowledge. And knowledge begins when shame ends. Imagine a man who has spent years thinking he was alone. He starts paying attention. He notices his worst sexual days often come after nights of poor sleep. He notices that stress affects his desire more than he admitted. He checks his blood pressure and realizes it has been high. He talks to his doctor about a medication that may be affecting him. He begins walking every day. He reduces alcohol. He stops using masturbation as a test of whether he is still a man. He stops treating his body like an enemy. He speaks to his partner with more honesty. He stops expecting his body to behave like it did at 25, and he begins caring for it like a man who plans to live fully at 55, 60, 70, and beyond. Nothing magical happened, but something powerful happened. He stopped hiding. And when a man stops hiding, his whole body can begin to feel safer. That safety matters because desire is not only mechanical, it is emotional, it is physical, it is hormonal, it is relational, it is neurological, it is connected to the whole man. And when the whole man is under pressure, the body speaks. So instead of asking your body to perform while ignoring everything else, begin asking what support your body has been missing. Has it been missing sleep, movement, better food, less alcohol, medical attention, a real conversation, less shame, more patience, more emotional safety, a healthier relationship with pleasure, a break from using masturbation as proof, a break from pornography that trains your body to respond only to intensity instead of presence, a break from the belief that being a man means never needing help. These questions are not meant to make you feel guilty. They are meant to give you power. Because when you can name a pattern, you can change your relationship with it. And when you can change your relationship with it, you're no longer trapped inside it. That is where rebuilding begins. Not with panic, not with self-hatred, not with denial, but with one honest decision. I am going to understand what is happening. That decision may be quiet. Nobody may see it. Nobody may applaud it. But it can change the direction of your life. Because a man who understands himself becomes harder to destroy. He no longer lets one difficult night define him. He no longer lets shame speak as if it were truth. He no longer lets silence make decisions for him. He no longer believes his value depends only on performance. He begins to lead himself again. And that leadership may become visible in small ways. He wakes up and walks. He drinks water instead of reaching for another drink at night. He sleeps earlier. He books the appointment. He asks the uncomfortable question. He speaks with less disgust toward himself. He tells his partner the truth. He pays attention to his body without attacking it. He stops using age as a sentence, and little by little, self-esteem begins to return, not because everything is perfect, but because he is keeping promises to himself again. Self-esteem is built when a man respects himself in private. It is built when he takes action nobody sees. It is built when he chooses honesty over avoidance. It is built when he stops calling himself broken and starts treating himself like someone worth helping. That is the kind of strength many men were never taught. They were taught to endure. They were taught to perform. They were taught to stay quiet, but they were not always taught to understand. And understanding is what changes the story. Because, after 50, sexual health should not be treated like a shameful secret. It should be treated like part of overall health. Just like the heart, just like the mind, just like sleep, just like energy, just like emotional well-being. And the more a man understands that, the less alone he feels. He begins to see that he is not strange. He is not defective. He is not the only one. He is a human being with a body that changes, responds, adapts, and asks for care. And care is not weakness. Care is responsibility. So if this message reached a place in you that you usually keep hidden, do not ignore it. That feeling is not weakness. It may be awareness, and awareness is where transformation begins. Do not let embarrassment make your decisions. Do not let old guilt define your future. Do not let one difficult night become your identity. Do not let silence convince you that every other man is stronger than you. Do not let shame keep you from getting clarity. Because there are reasons this happens. There are patterns to study. There are conversations to have. There are qualified professionals who understand this. There are habits that can be changed. There are choices that can support blood flow, energy, emotional balance, confidence, and a healthier relationship with your own body. And the first step is not shame. The first step is honesty. So listen to your body, not with fear, not with disgust, not with panic, but with maturity. Because your body may not be asking you to give up. It may be asking you to finally pay attention. Subscribe to the channel because here we talk about men's health with maturity, truth, and respect. Without humiliation, without fantasy, and without pretending that silence is strength. In the next videos, we will keep uncovering the hidden signals men are taught to ignore, and we will keep building a clearer path toward confidence, health, and a better relationship with the body. Because after 50, the goal is not to become the man you were at 25. The goal is to become the man who finally understands himself. And maybe that is where real strength begins.